Let's get back to it. So this is the third and final sequence for this video on how to install DevOps Shield solution from the Azure Marketplace and get started for free. So in the first two, we basically installed the app from the Azure Marketplace and then ran the post-install script that you could find on GitHub to create the app registration. So all that was done, and what that gave us is the following application right here. So I haven't changed anything. And the version, like I said, is 1.0700. That's the one that we just installed. Now, when we click, we logged in, all right? And when we clicked, the first thing that you're going to see is basically no resources found. And, pretty much wherever you go, you're going to see this yellow sign right here, sort of trying to push you basically to start your configuration, right? So let's heed that big yellow sign. Let's click on Start Your Configuration Now. Let me go ahead and do that. So I can configure, remember we did this app registration, I could do an on behalf of. So in other words, with the user currently logged in, it has access to a bunch of Azure DevOps organizations, and I could run under that context, that user, if you will. Or I could generate a tenant token. We'll see both. But let me go ahead and run, do the setup, get started on behalf of user access token. It's probably going to be the most common scenario. Now, this is the first time that we'll need to consent for this. This is to have access to the Visual Studio VSTS. That's the old name for Azure DevOps REST APIs. Okay, so I'm going to consent. I can, of course, consent on behalf of the organization if needed. I don't want to do that. We have the same links for those terms of service and so on. I'm not going to bother clicking them this time, but I will accept. All right. So now that takes me to the quick setup, and I only have to fill these two fields here, basically. I need to specify the tenant ID, basically where the Azure DevOps organization is usually backed by a tenant and the tenant ID. So I need to specify that. Let me specify that here. And it's good to have the tenant name that's meaningful, usually the actual tenant name. So in my case, it's qsoftvision on Microsoft.com is the example I want to show today. And that's it. I just need to click on Start Setup Now. Now, because I need to log in, I'm going to need that. I need that consent, except right here. So I will do that and click on Accept. And I have to click the Start Setup Now once more. This is only done once, but let me go ahead and do that. And we're done. So it found the 20 organizations associated to that tenant, created a management group for each of these organizations, and loaded a bunch of policy initiatives and definitions. It's very similar to what you know about Azure policies. So what Azure policies are to Azure, these DevOps policies, if you will, or DevOps Shield policies are to Azure DevOps. And you can actually look at them. You can see the definitions here that were created, the policy definitions, the initiatives, and so on. So I'll let you on your own time look at some of these things. But they essentially all together globally account for some really baseline configuration of the Azure DevOps platform. That would be secure and compliant. So these are really things that you should be following. You can also have custom policies and so on. That's we'll leave for another time. Okay, but the whole point is that we did set everything up. We could see our enterprise. There's one main enterprise. The tenant, there's just one for now that we use. Those 20 organizations that we found, they're all here. Nothing has been scanned yet in terms of for compliance. Okay, so we're still haven't triggered that yet, and we will. For the projects, we haven't found them yet because we basically didn't run a scan yet. Okay, so we only know, not a full inventory scan. We know the organizations. That's about it. So let me go ahead, and you see, notice there's a bunch of zeros here, right? Nothing. So you can actually run on behalf of right here. Do a get started. Same kind of principle. It's going to run and do a scan on behalf of. I could certainly do that. Or the other thing I can do is actually even create a token, a PAT token. It's your choice. You could do either one. I like to generate a token in the beginning, especially when I want to see all the information right away. And you have read-only and full scope tokens. So you see right here, those, if you just want to, if you're just interested in these resources and so on, read-only tokens will be good. However, if you want to go to that org level, for example, detect new organizations or see organization policies and so on, you will need a full access token. So you can generate it at the tenant level. Here I only have one tenant. Or at the organization level. I am going to create a PAT token that expires in 15 days. It's the default, into the Key Vault, and a full access. That way I get the full McCoy. Let's get the whole scan going on here. So let me go ahead and generate and that's it. I've generated a token. I will be able to see it, and this will also have triggered a data resource scan. So it's actually going on for me automatically, which is great. And you can see it if you go back to the tokens. You see that's that token that just got generated. Now it got generated today. Of course, it will expire in 15 days, right? You could have changed that as well, right? But could just do it for a day, for example, if you wanted to. And you just wait for the scan to finish. Now, the scan, I mean, for a medium-sized one, it can go, it obviously depends on the number of resources or repos that you have. For my more complex org that is multi-tenanted, like I have 7 or 8 tenants and so on, my scans last almost 8 minutes. This one should be done in 2 tops 3 minutes. You can refresh, or every 30 seconds right here, it's going to be refreshing. And you could run any of these things on demand. Otherwise, they're scheduled. So you can click on the run now. It's going to run these tasks. But otherwise, they're scheduled. So every 8 hours or a few times a day, basically, depending on the actual service, actually. But this will be done shortly, the data resource scan, we're hoping. Just refresh that. Okay, 1 minute and 40 seconds, maybe a minute or so left. And I think while I'm waiting, there is also a library here that sort of defines a few standard things, like, for example, which extensions you'll trust, say the ones from Microsoft or Microsoft Dev Labs and DevOps Shield. So a few variables here that you could configure. You have your tokens as well. And there, we're actually done. Just me looking around the thing. So what happened? The data scan finished, and it scanned all 20 organizations right here. This is the total number, the total amount of resources that I have. It also then automatically triggered the policy evaluation, which ran pretty quickly, and then the policy compliance. Once the policy compliance is done, that's when we have the compliance scores. Okay, so let me first show you the inventory. The inventory you could find here in the Data Explorer. Notice it shows me all my orgs. So there were 20 or so orgs. The top, all the projects as well, and you could also look at the top projects. So you could view all by clicking these things right here. The top organizations is essentially by number of resources, so that shows me that. And notice you have counts for the teams. I mean, this is already pretty rich. You have the number of users, the teams, repositories, branches, even all the pipelines, service connections, and so on, agent pools, environments. And you could click on any one of those, for example, this organization, and see the full breakdown there. And you could scan, you could filter, and so on. And if you click on any one of these, say like this agent pool right here, you get the full set of information right here, and even a JSON, sort of the raw data that you got from the API REST call right here. And I'll end. So you saw how quickly we're able to quickly get a full inventory. We also, of course, ran the compliance, which then gives you your compliance score. This again basically gives you what's compliant, sort of the green stuff, versus what the red stuff, the non-compliant stuff. So things that you need to fix. And you have a full list and breakdown right here. So you can, for example, disallow guest users. This is a critical one that you should fix at the organization level. And if you click on any one of these, it even tells you how to remediate, and gives you links in the Microsoft Docs documentation, for example, that explains why you should secure this stuff. Finally, I'll end here. I did say this is the freemium plan. So you're protected up to 10 protected resources. So basically 10 resources got selected for you automatically according to, top resources. You can change that, of course, by enrolling or disenrolling certain resources. And you can upgrade to a bigger plan to protect more resources. Of course, anything past freemium, you would start to pay. If I wanted to protect my whole inventory, which is 710, I would need to run the recommended plan to use is the gold plan, which does protect up to 2,000 resources. So this is it. I'll leave it to a future video to go a little bit more in details on some of these things that we went through. Thank you for listening to this video. I really hope that you try this and go to the Azure Marketplace and try it out and find out for yourself where you're at today for your DevSecOps, and figure out how to secure your DevOps and fix those misconfiguration issues today.